What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's me, Butter, and I'm here with another video on how I made this super dope cosplay Chainsaw Man. I will say that this costume build took me quite a bit to make, but I got it done just in time for Halloween. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, today I'll be using a template from SKS Props. They are here on YouTube. You can look them up. But I am pretty much basically cutting out all the pieces for the helmet. I am making sure all the pieces are cut out perfectly because if you don't, it will look weird, and I don't want that. I am pretty much basically using contact cement. I'm using super glue for all my pieces. Right now I'm using contact cement, and I make sure that it is dried to like a tacky feel. Then I glued them together. Now I am taking 2 pieces of 6mm foam and I'm cutting it out for his chainsaw in the front of his head. I carved out a cavity in the middle and I'm using a steel rod. I've shaped it and I take the 2 pieces and I sandwich them in between with the rod. I take that whole piece and I add a little slip, like a little piece of foam, and I use contact cement for the back of it so that it can stick to the front part of the helmet. So I just, spread it on there, make sure that it's evenly spreaded, and I make sure that it dries well. And then I use my heat gun and I shaped this little piece of 6mm foam and I glue it to the back of this chainsaw piece. I make sure that it's well dry because if it's not dry, it will give you hell. It gave me so much trouble because I kept forgetting that I had to make sure that it was dry to a certain time, it had to be dried. Then I'm going to take some contact cement and then I'm going to apply it to each side of this chainsaw blade that's going to go in the front of his head. And I make sure that I spread it evenly because it's going to go in the little area that's down the middle of his head. So I wait till that gets to drying and then I place it there. Next, I am working with the jaw. I take some 10mm foam and I am putting contact cement. I'm also using my heat gun to apply heat to shape it because it wasn't looking the way I wanted it to look, so I had to shape it. I did the teeth offline. I used some 15mm dowels, round dowels, and I shaped them the way I wanted to. What I'm doing right now is I am gluing them down into the head, the head part, the top head part of it, and I'm making sure that I have them where I want them. I'm placing them. I've already put little holes in there. This is what it looks like after I put the teeth in. Next, I am working on the chain link that goes onto the front part of his head. It will connect to that part you saw me sandwiching the rod in the middle of. I heat sealed it, made sure it was nice and sealed. And then I'm adding a chain link on the side to hold the jaw in place, to hold the bottom of his jaw in place of the top part, if that makes sense. I'm just adding some super glue just to hold it in place and to make sure it's secure. It took me a while to get this part together because I had to make sure that it fit my head. You gotta make sure it fits. Here is the final look. Well, not really, I have to paint it. I added some PVC pipes for the handles with some elbows. I also redid the teeth and I also adjusted the jaw because it did not work for me. It was not working because I could not fit the helmet and it was just really not working. So I did all that and then I had to improvise on some of the pieces in the back. Some of the pieces I followed the tutorial from SKS Props, but I was unable to do it because I did not have every piece that he had. So I had to do my own thing, which it turned out great. All right, it's time for the gums. I am using a foam clay that I got from my local Michaels. They did not have any other brand. I would have chosen another brand if I could, but I could not. Right now, I am just basting the teeth with water And I'm taking each piece and I am sculpting it with my hand at first, but then I take my little sculpting tool and I make it look like gums. I do this for the top and the bottom on both sides, and I make sure I press very firmly into it because it will puff right back up. Time for the fun part. I put some Plasti Dip on this, and now it's time for me to paint it. I used a few base coats. I sprayed them on with spray paint. I used a flat white for the teeth. I also used a dull red for the top of the helmet. I used a metallic for the blade in the front and for the back of the helmet. I made sure I tried to get these mixtures of acrylics not on the horn. Oh, not the horn, I'm sorry. On the blade in the front because it stains. So I tried to make sure, but it was so hard because oh my god, I wanted to get right on the creases and not on the front part of his helmet. But I also did it for the side of the helmet, and I took some black wash, I took some black paint, and I took some water, and I just took my brush and I made sure I got it on every metallic part because I wanted this to be rusty and dark, and I wanted to have some contrast to it. I took my blow dryer and I dried it as I went, and I just took a wet paper towel and I just rolled it all the way around it whenever I put like little black spots on with the black wash. But I also took my paintbrush and I took some actual black paint and I swirled it around on the metallic parts too because it seemed like it didn't want to work for me. So I just took some plain black and just swished it around and then took my wet paper towel and scrubbed it on there as well. So it actually worked out perfectly. It was just tedious. And I did it for the blade part. I also took some black paint, some plain black paint, but I also did the black wash as well on this part. It was a long process. It starts to darken up little by little, but I had to like really, really keep going back over and over and over it so that it can be the way that I wanted it to be. I added a few little details to make it look like blood is on the blade and like it's coming out of his head. So I added blood there, and this is how I got it looking. It's looking good. For the hands, I pretty much basically did what I did for the blade in the front of his head. I just made a chain link, glued it to the top of two other pieces, longer pieces, and I also cut out the middle of it so that my hands can go in between it. And I glued the pieces on top of the blade. I painted it, I black washed it, and I added some effects to it, and this is how it came out. I enjoyed this very much. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I cannot wait to see you guys on my next project.